KELA's Let's Talk About It. Discussions on a variety of topics of interest to Southwest Washington area listeners. Write down our listener call-in number and keep it handy. 330-5352. That's 330-KELA. You're invited to join in with your calls now at 330-KELA. Views expressed on this show are those of the host, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of the station, its management, or advertisers. Daily programs are recorded for playback, podcasts, and promotional purposes. And now, let's talk about it.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Let's Talk About It show on AM1470 KELA and KELAAM.com. I'm your host, Peter Abbarno, on this Thursday edition, which is no different than any other edition of the Let's Talk About It show, except I am the host now on Thursdays. And my special guest today, which is a good friend of mine, Kevin Carns, or shall I say the Honorable Kevin Carns. Well, you haven't been elected yet. You've been appointed.
I've been appointed, yeah.
So Kevin is a new city of Chehalis counselor. And how's that going so far?
You know, it's been interesting.
Yeah.
A little bit like drinking water through a fire hose.
Yep. Or bourbon through a fire hose.
Yeah. I prefer a whiskey glass.
There you go.
But we're in collective bargaining.
Yeah.
So that's jumping feet first into the fire in the frying pan. We got some challenges, like a lot of cities, having trouble keeping good cops.
Yep.
Got a shortage of police officers, and I think we're down 3 from where we should be. City of Kent is down 25.
Yeah.
You've got the city of Bremerton offering $20,000 bonuses for lateral transfers and poaching people left and right.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's what a commodity.
It's a seller's market for a police officer.
Yeah. And why wouldn't you? I mean, if you've got training in a city like Seattle or Everett or somewhere else, and all of a sudden, you get the opportunity to come to a small town and they're giving you, bonuses, you want to go. But a lot of towns don't have the budget to compete.
That's kind of where we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're a little bit below comps for similar sized cities. We're looking to give the guys a raise, but you got to work within the numbers.
Yeah.
So it's got to make sense. I wouldn't vote for a tax increase. I'm appointed. I haven't been elected, but I'd send something to the voters.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, the voters have to decide what their stomach is for certain things. I mean, I've been really disappointed by some of these emergency levies that were failing because, they're not failing because they're not a good investment. They're failing because of all the other cruddy taxes that people are tired of paying, and then good investments like an emergency levy is suffering. And I think the same thing might happen if you put it to the voters, even on like a police type levy.
Yep. And one of the draws that we used to have here as a smaller community was it's a pretty affordable place to live, right? And so you could offer a little bit less salary. But a quote unquote starter home is $400,000 in town now. So that, a guy starting out making 58 to 60 grand a year, it's going to be hard qualifying for that loan.
Right.
So we've lost a lot of our incentive with the way the growth in the housing market and everything else.
Well, and so let's talk a little bit about that, because it's a good segue into kind of both your and my careers, which have been in politics for a very long time.
Yeah, we've known each other a while, right? Like 2006 when you were director at the state party?
2001.
Oh, man.
So I'm dating myself.
Boy, I am too.
So 2001, started working at the state Republican Party, and you were working in the House, right?
Yeah.
You were at A-Truck at that time, right?
I think, back then I was on a campaign or two, did the Jim Johnson race. Yeah, I was probably like on research staff in the House, and then I think I came to A-Truck and the Reagan Fund in 2004.
Yeah,
maybe?
because I ended up leaving to go to law school in 2005, and then came back in my summers, worked at the AG's office, and then came back for good in 2008, I think.
Yeah, I'd worked in the House, and then official side, right, not the political side, and then lobbied for the restaurant industry for a couple years.
I remember that.
Yeah,
Anthony Anton, right? Was
Well, Gene Vosberg was the guy that hired me, and then Anthony took over as CEO when I was a political director, PAC director there for a few years.
So a lot of inside baseball. If you want to join our inside baseball discussion, 360-330-5352. I'm your host, Peter Abbarno. My special guest this morning is Chehalis City Councilor Kevin Carns, but he's also executive director of the Reagan Fund, which is an organization that does what?
Our entire goal, the Reagan Fund is the leadership PAC of the House Republican Caucus in Olympia. So our entire purpose is to recruit and elect Republicans to the state House.
Right.
I work with our counterparts in the Senate, Senator Braun, really, really closely, but our legal incorporation is strictly House races, and it includes everything from helping recruit good candidates,
right,
to doing research, public opinion research, polling, fundraising, then direct advocacy and independent expenditures, those TV ads and mail and all those phone calls people love to get.
Or love to not get, to
right.
block, right? So a couple of weeks ago, and even I think last week, I talked a little bit about the latest Elway poll that talked about the top 3 issues that concern voters right now in the state of Washington were the economy and inflation. Number 2 was homelessness. Number 3 was crime. And then you had a bunch 4, 5, 6 were abortion. Environment was way down at the bottom, even though for some reason our friends on the other side of the aisle continue to focus on the environmental issues, and the media continues to bite on it as an important issue. In your polling, not giving away any of your trade secrets, is that what you're seeing? Is that what you saw on primary night?
2 separate questions, I think.
Yes, it was.
So there's pre-Dobbs Roe decision polling, and then there's post-Dobbs and Roe decision polling, and those are 2 entirely different animals.
Yeah.
Right. Depending on which segment of voters you're talking to, right, is somebody that is a true blue Democrat, that Roe and Dobbs decision is at the top of their intensity list for their decision process to vote, and that's essentially what voting is. It's a buying decision.
Right.
And the one thing I've learned over the years is that most voters tend to buy emotionally and then rationalize logically after. Right. And so it's an emotional decision for the most part. So if you're a true blue Democrat, that is absolutely your number 1 top issue, even with gas, hovering around $5 a gallon still. If you are a middle of the road swing voter, it may or may not be your top issue, but the economic anxiety and our crime issues, like we were talking about with our cops, is absolutely a top 1 or 2 issue.
Right.
And then you start moving over into the spectrum with your light red and darker red, like we have here in lovely Lewis County, right. Is pretty conservative, right? I would say we're probably the most conservative county on the west side of the state. Those folks, it's absolutely crime, right, and the economy. So it really depends on the color wheel of partisanship in where you fall. We did a little bit of exit polling of folks who actually cast a ballot in the primary. It was really low turnout.
It was below statewide. It was 30s, somewhere in the upper 30s.
It'll probably hit 40 by the time all the challenge ballots trickle in. People who forgot to sign get in and sign it and all that. But yeah, and it was really a partisan test.
Right.
The partisan flanks have hardened up. Right. Red's gotten darker red. Blue's gotten darker blue. The purple in the middle. There's still a flank of left and right. Right. Folks that call themselves, I'm an independent. Well, really? Are you?
You're center left or center right.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
No, there's very few people who skip down the yellow line in the middle of the road politically. Just human nature, right? And so we did some...
Though they like to say it. You saw those people who say, no, I'm really, really independent.
Totally.
I'm like, I'm not so sure.
Well, is that a virtue signal or is that true, right?
That's right.
Like, but maybe they're a disenfranchised Democrat or a disenfranchised Republican, or maybe they actually are a libertarian. Who knows? But, we do some pretty sophisticated data work that IDs people, because we don't have party identification in this state, and the voters want it that way. So that's great, but it makes my job extremely difficult at times. So we do some pretty sophisticated data work. Only 20% of swing voters actually cast a ballot in the primary,
which is very low,
super low.
Right.
Which means this primary was really a partisan beauty
you
contest.
either like the candidate or you were a party voter, and that's about it.
Yep. And so that swing universe, I really want to know what they're thinking, because for us to pick up seats, we have everything in Eastern Washington except for downtown Spokane. We've got our seats in Lewis County. We've got Jim Walsh and Joe McIntyre down in the 19th, just south and out to the coast of us. We've got most of Clark County outside of Vancouver proper, but in those swing districts like up in Whatcom County or up in the Islands where I just was yesterday, or DuPont, Lakewood area, in the 28th district. The swing voters are actually going to decide those elections.
Right.
Now, the swing voters who voted in the primary, abortion was their top issue. They're not really a swing voter anymore.
Right.
I moved them over into that blue column.
Right.
There's a ton of runway left, though. 80% of those folks were not motivated by, $10 million in Patty Murray TV ads on the Dobbs decision on the abortion thing. So we're going in and looking at it, but we think those folks are going to be motivated by economic anxiety, rising housing prices, high gas, and absolute lawlessness that the Democrats have unleashed. I mean, you were on the floor for those votes, the policing votes. Yeah. And so my job's to get out there and inform the voters some of those bills they passed.
Yeah, and not only on the House floor, but also in committee meetings on civil rights and judiciary, dealing with a lot of these issues. One of them being, and we talked about this a little bit beforehand, even bills that did not pass, I think it was 1069, the bill that passed the House floor, did not pass the Senate, but would lower sentences for gun crimes in protected zones like school buses and school zones and those types of things, and would also lower the sentence on drug crimes by school buses, passed by a Democrat majority, right? And so even though that didn't get through the Senate, one of the concerns people have is if you're concerned about crime, that bill's probably going to come back.
Yes.
And so are the voters ready for a bill like that to pass? I mean, if you think it can't get worse on crime,
it will.
Pass a bill that lowers the sentences for gun and drug crimes near a school bus.
Well, they passed an amendment, I think it was a Stryker amendment on one of the Senate bills that lowered the penalties for carrying a weapon into a school.
Right.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and it's kind of talking out of both sides of your face, right? Or both sides of your mouth. I mean, it's really very interesting to hear some of these floor debates. You don't often hear or see them in the newspaper, on the radio, or TV, but they're happening.
Oh, boy.
And it can get a lot worse.
It sure can. Well, they dropped a bill. I can't remember who the sponsor was, but somebody in the House D caucus sponsored a bill to lower the penalties for a drive-by shooting.
That's right. I remember that. And that did get a little bit of attention.
It did.
And people woke up and then they killed that bill right away.
Absolutely.
But again, depending on what happens in November, that bill might come back.
Absolutely.
And so I think the public always needs to know that. Let's take a caller. Good morning. Welcome to the Let's Talk About It show. You're on the air. Hello. Okay. That person maybe didn't want to talk. You're listening to Let's Talk About It, AM1470 KELA and KELAAM.com. I'm your host, Peter Abbarno. My good friend next to me right now, Kevin Carns. He's a Chehalis City Councilor, as well as he is the Executive Director of the Reagan Fund. And we're talking a little bit about the primary elections and what might happen, what has happened, and what we expect in the upcoming next, 2-3 months. Kevin, how much does the federal issues have on state issues? I mean, we always hear people say, well, that's a federal issue, it's not going to impact. You just talked about Dobbs, totally federal issue, but it got kicked to the state.
Right.
But what about some of these other things like maybe war in Ukraine or these inflation reduction bills that are just going to raise your taxes?
So a couple things I've learned after a few years in this business is that politics follows culture. Culture doesn't follow politics. And two, everything that happens at the national level impacts you as a state legislator in your campaigns. And, as important as it is, it's not the sexiest thing in the news. Right. And so, given the prevalence of having the 24-hour news cycle in your pocket with an iPhone 11, people are more plugged in than ever to international and national news. So those events absolutely impact us down. How much? That's where the art and science of politics converge, right? And that's why we do this data work. Okay, how much is this issue impacting us? Right. Can you cut through the clutter? The average targeted state house campaign, $250,000 roughly, when you're talking top of the ticket with some outside spending, right? But then you got Patty Murray dropping $7 million in TV ads.
Right.
How do I overcome that? I made a $400,000 TV buy up and down the I-5 corridor, and I thought that was pretty boss.
Right.
And then I pulled the buy sheet a couple days later, and Patty Murray's doing $700,000 every 5 days.
Right.
You know, so having the right candidate to deliver that message and the right human that appeals to, we got a really simple litmus test for folks we recruit for office, and none of it includes an ideological question.
Right.
That's for you guys behind the closed caucus doors to figure out.
Yeah.
That's not my job. My job is to find good humans and bring them to you. But it's real simple. Are they high integrity? Are they hardworking? And are they connected to their community?
Yeah.
And if they can pass that 3 litmus tests, you can win an election.
Yeah, and they're all really important. One of the ones that I've stressed to candidates looking to run for office is, where have you been the last couple of years? I don't think voters like Johnny-come-latelys or Jane-come-latelys, however you want to frame it. They want people who are ingrained in the community, are on committees, who are involved in nonprofits, who are visible, not just in that election year.
Absolutely. And Peter, that's one of the things I admire about you the most, man. You're everywhere. And that will help you stay connected to your voters. But you were there before you ever got elected, right? And so having that community connectivity, whatever it is, coaching Little League, Rotary, your church, your kids, PTA. I mean, we have great success getting smaller school board members and PTA presidents elected because they just have that connectivity to so many other humans in their district.
Right. So important. I mean, we talked a little bit about this before when we were talking about congressional races and federal races, because you spend so much time in Washington, D.C., is that you sometimes don't have that connection. You're not building that relationship at events because you're not at those events.
Yeah, it's got to be hard. I would never in a million years want to be a member of Congress.
No. Worst
job in America.
Yeah, because you're living in Virginia or D.C. and you're not in your district. And especially if you have kids. I mean, I think about my kids and I take them, we're going to be at the Morton Lager Jubilee on Saturday at the parade, and I'm able to kind of share some of those moments together. But if you're in Virginia and you're flying back and forth every week, boy, you're missing out on a lot.
Yeah. I've got an 11-year-old at home and just getting up to the islands and making a little statewide swing. It's like, okay, buddy, I'll see you in 3 days. Yep. And that's rough. We got him a phone, so now I can text him and stuff. But I can't imagine living on 2 different coasts, trying to manage a family and making it all work. So it's pretty good money, but is it when you're trying to maintain 2 households and live out of a duffel bag?
Right. And I mean, that begs a whole other question of why you're in politics, right?
Right.
Are you in politics to make a difference and change, or are you in politics to make money and make it a career?
I'm in it for the $100 a month at the Chehalis City Council.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's true. People would make comments. They don't make comments as much as a state legislator, but when I was on city council, it was weird. You would see comments. And that's what early on in my political career, and I still say this, I post and run. I never read the comments. So
right.
When people say good things or bad things, I rarely ever see them. If you're going to start some debate on my site, have your fun, because I don't read it.
It's a,
because you can't, you'll lose your mind.
No, you will. You absolutely will. Because the second you have the courage to put your name on a ballot, there are people who just dislike you,
right,
who have no idea who you are as a human.
Yep. That's a good point. I mean, they don't know your involvement. They don't know what you're doing. I've always been pretty much an open book. I mean, I've always tried to involve my family. There's people who say, don't involve your family in politics. But you know what? That's kind of my identity, because years before I even decided to run for city council, I was involving my family and giving back. And so I kind of took a different tack, but I completely understand people who say, I'm going to run, but I am totally going to run on my own and not involve my family, kids, friends. Hey, you're listening to Let's Talk About It, AM1470 KELA and KELAAM.com. We're going to be back in just a minute after our awesome sponsors. I'm Peter Abbarno, your host, and I have Kevin Carns with me, and we'll be taking your calls, 360-330-5352.
Summer is the premier time to showcase your home and property. Hi, this is Heather Stewart, your local real estate professional with Blade Realty. The housing demand is high, inventory is low, and home buyers are ready to purchase. If you're looking to sell or invest in real estate, take advantage of my stellar service and local relationships, leading to smooth closings and a positive experience. For your trusted real estate professional, find me online at heatherstewartrealtor.com or on Facebook, and let's get moving.
You're in pain or something's off. The hard part, living uncomfortably. The easy part, get a referral to Advanced Rehabilitation Specialties in Centralia. Receive expert treatment from a specialist who understands pain and knows how to get things back in working order. Listen, if a work injury is holding you back, count on Advanced Rehabilitation Specialties to use the latest techniques adapted to your specific needs for this solution-based therapy. Get back to living. Call Advanced Rehabilitation Specialties at 736-0699.
Not all cannabis and CBD products are created equal. At Tenino Cannabis Boutique, we know the difference. Get a wide range of cannabis and CBD products from this to this. You'll also get an informative, knowledgeable staff that can get you exactly the CBD or cannabis product you need. The right solution to start your day. Find us in the big green building on the corner of South Wichman Street in Tenino and on Instagram. The right product, the right people. Tenino Cannabis Boutique.
Okay, honey, one more quick stop at the grocery store so Mommy can pick up dinner.
The grocery store!
Getting this excited to come see us isn't all that unusual. Experience a world of difference in the quality of our produce, in the smiles that greet you out the door, the butcher who cuts fresh every time, the baker who swoons you with sweet aromas.
From fresh meats and produce to your favorite cereal, you'll find it at Cedar Village IGA. Whatever groceries you're looking for, along with a wonderful deli and gift shop. At Cedar Village IGA in Wenlock, you'll find it.
And if you don't already know, the best is back.
On the web, on your phone, and on the air.
KELA. Let's talk about it.
Welcome back to Let's Talk About It, AM1470 KELA and KELAAM.com. I'm your host, Peter Abbarno. We've got about 10 minutes left with Kevin Carns, Chehalis City Councilor and Executive Director of the Reagan Fund. Kevin, now that you are a public figure, how many days are you going to be at the Southwest Washington Fair?
My son would like to be there every day. My checkbook would like to be there as little as possible. Busy time, day job wise, but we'll definitely make the rounds at the fair. Loved going when I was a kid. So yeah, we'll definitely make the rounds. I'm not into the rides anymore, but we'll do the barns and go hit the livestock and make the rounds and get an elephant. Got to get an elephant ear.
Or one of those giant turkey legs.
Yeah. Really? Giant turkey legs?
They're awesome. Well, my daughter rides with 4-H over there at the horse barns with Glitter and Grit.
So you're there.
So my wife is there a lot. I try to pop in as much as I can.
Are you camped out like Wade Samuelson has been for the last 20 years there with the horses?
Well, he does the announcing.
Oh, okay.
So he has to be there.
I think his daughters are kind of out. Are they still in?
No, they're still in, man.
That horse stuff's cheap, right?
Oh, well, that's a whole nother matter. It's funny. I wrote an article for the Chronicle and the Chamber on the Southwest Washington Fair and just how important ranching and farming is. And it's a good reminder that fair it was really created and funded by the state legislature. It's legislature back in, it started kind of 1870s, and then in 1907 it got the statute to fund it. So
it's one of the older fairs in the state, isn't it?
Yeah. And it needs work. We need to focus on that fair. That's another really good investment we need to focus on. A lot of fun. And so I love going to that. Another reminder, I always give my shameless plugs. August 26th, my barbecue is going on over at the Merton Ranch in Toledo. Go to electpeterabbarno.com. Check that out. A lot of fun. JT Wilcox is going to be there.
Yep.
I think Jim Walsh is going to be there. Yep. McIntyre at Orcutt. We're going to have a lot of folks there. Bonanza Barbecue. It's only $20. A lot of good stuff. A lot of fun way to kind of build unity, build excitement, and try to get people together.
Yeah.
I like those events.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, those are a lot of fun. A lot of other really cool events going on. Always shoot me an email if you want a quick plug on yours. So let's take another caller. Let's see if we can get some caller. The last one kind of didn't really come through. So let's see this one. Ready? Good morning. Welcome to the show. You're on the air.
Hey, Peter. I know y'all are talking about politics and how community involvement helps there, but I think we should stretch people a little beyond the political aspect and just encourage people to look for things they can do in their community to make their community a better place. You don't have to be in the limelight or spotlight or anything. I mean, there's just a lot of jobs that are a lot of things that happen that depend on volunteers or people that will work part-time or whatever to make the community a better place. I found some of those arguably some strange, little different than most, but those are the kinds of things that we all should be looking. What are my talents? What are my skills? How can I give back to my community? Because I don't care who you are, you gain a lot just by living in this country and being a part. And it's really incumbent upon us to look at our skill set and give back where we can.
Yeah, that's a good comment. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, whether it's, right now, one of the big pushes, I've been trying to encourage people to do is volunteer to coach and ump and referee youth sports.
Yeah.
Boy, they need it.
I coached junior cats football off and on over the years, and it's such a blast. The most fun I've ever had coaching was K1 flag football.
Yeah.
If nobody cries, everybody shows up the next day and they want to play next year, you're winning.
Yeah.
Right. Like learn the game a little bit, but there's such a lack of umps and coaches, and it's just good for the kids. But that caller, home run. Right. Yeah. There's all kinds of stuff, whether it's volunteering. I know there's a group over in Centralia that goes and just cleans up off ramps all the time. I think was that Steve and Brian Copa organized that. Those guys are awesome.
Yep.
Anything you can do to make the community a better place. And it certainly doesn't all have to be from the backside of a dais, right?
Right. No, and I think that's the important part. I mean, I think what we mentioned was, the best candidates are people who volunteer and volunteer for the right reasons. I mean, volunteering years before you even think of running for office, because they're not only ingrained in the community, but they care about the community for the right reasons.
Yeah, voters can sense and smell a disingenuous human coming like 100 miles away.
Right.
And so being genuine like that and having that community involvement and like, okay, I didn't do this to get elected.
Right. In a lot of things I do today, which, you'll see on Facebook and photos, school supply drive, perfect example. I did that before I was even elected. I wasn't even thinking about that. You do it because you just see a need in your community. You just want to give back. It makes you feel good.
Yeah.
And you have a young son, your son's 11. Getting kids trained and involved in the community early on then builds that as kind of a lifelong model.
Yep, absolutely.
So really important. All right, let's take another caller. Good morning. Welcome to the show. You're on the air. There's another one that just didn't come on. Maybe these are like those paid dialers, and so they have, you always know which ones are calling you, and you've got that pause between you pick up. Didn't we ban that in the legislature?
I think so.
Good morning. Welcome to the show. You're on the air.
Yeah, hey, I wanted to say we ought to be grateful for where we live at, because for far as weather, cause I listen to Dan Bongino and then Sean Hannity, but then from 3 to 6, I listen to Mark Levin, but the station's out over is in North Carolina, and since May they've had nothing but 94 degrees, 100 heat index at 104 for the last since May.
Yeah.
So be grateful. I'm just saying. Thank God I'm here, because tomorrow it's going to be 76 degrees.
Yeah. Yeah. And during fair, it's going to get up into the 90s. So be careful. Drink a lot of water.
Great.
Yeah, that was a good call. There's a lot in our community to be grateful for, not just weather, but people and community. It's a unique place.
It sure is. My family came here not long after the Civil War. Settled down in Winlock area, Brenson's Hollow. That's actually my family's Carns family cemetery.
Really?
But a lot of people don't realize Lewis County was founded by abolitionist Southerners.
Wow. Yeah.
That came up here after the war. We got challenges. As an I-5 corridor city, we're always going to have problems that come through.
Right.
Right. But overall, this is just such a great community, and folks care.
Yeah. Whether it's your neighbor and, they have a fire in their house or theft or something bad happens or death in the family. I've lived all over the country, and I've never seen a community that comes together like our community, just rallies behind people to support them. It's what makes us unique. Kevin, any parting thoughts?
Send your ballots in, and I won't have to send those phone calls that you hate so much.
I appreciate Kevin Carns, Centralia, he wishes. Chehalis City Councilor Kevin Carns, and he's the Executive Director of the Reagan Fund. Appreciate him coming on the show, and thank you for listening to the Let's Talk About It show here on AM1470 KELA. And you can always stream this show on KELAAM.com every Monday through Friday at 8:30 to 9. Hope to see you at the Morton Loggers Jubilee this weekend. Just lots of cool, fun events going on. Make sure that you get dialed in for not only the fun events, but all these amazing volunteer opportunities in our community. Have a great, safe day and weekend. Thanks for tuning in.